Prices are falling, but millions of households still feel the squeeze. Tonight, a major inflation report lands, and the numbers tell a story more complicated than any headline can capture. This is your complete briefing. The Consumer Price Index, the government's main inflation yardstick, rose 3.4% over the past year. That's down sharply from the 9.1% peak in June 2022, but still above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Progress, but not victory. So what's actually driving prices up? Housing costs remain the biggest culprit, accounting for over a third of the total CPI reading. Energy prices have cooled significantly, but groceries and car insurance keep pushing the number stubbornly higher. At the center of this story stands the Federal Reserve. Since March 2022, the Fed has raised interest rates 11 times, pushing the benchmark rate to a 23-year high of 5.25 to 5.5%. Chairman Jerome Powell calls it a necessary medicine, but the dose has side effects. Higher rates were designed to cool the economy, and in many ways they're working. Mortgage rates climbed above 7%, the housing market slowed, and consumer borrowing tightened. But here's the tension. The job market refuses to crack. Unemployment sits near historic lows. Globally, the inflation story looks different depending on where you stand. Europe battled energy-driven inflation even harder than the US, while emerging markets faced currency pressures on top of rising prices. The war in Ukraine remains a key variable, disrupting grain and energy supplies worldwide. Back home, the pain isn't evenly distributed. Lower-income households spend a larger share of their budget on food and energy, the two categories that spiked hardest. For the top income bracket, inflation was an inconvenience. For the bottom, it was a crisis. That gap matters enormously. Wall Street has been obsessed with one question all year: when will the Fed cut rates? Markets initially priced in 6 cuts for 2024, but stubborn inflation data forced traders to revise that down to just 1 or 2. The pivot everyone expected has been repeatedly delayed. Corporate America has played a quiet but significant role in this inflation story. Many large companies expanded profit margins during the price surge, a phenomenon economists call greedflation. Congressional hearings have put executives from grocery chains and oil companies firmly in the spotlight. Consumer expectations are a crucial, and often overlooked, inflation driver. When people expect prices to keep rising, they demand higher wages, which pushes costs higher. The good news: University of Michigan surveys show long-term inflation expectations remain anchored near 3%. That's stabilizing. So what happens next? Most economists forecast inflation continuing its slow descent toward 2%, but the timeline keeps shifting. A resurgence in oil prices, a new geopolitical shock, or a hot jobs report could change everything. The Fed's next move hinges on the next 3 data releases. Here's the bottom line. Inflation has come a long way from its 40-year high, but the final mile is the hardest. The Fed, the consumer, and the global economy are all locked in a delicate balance. How it tips will define the financial story of 2024 and beyond. Stay informed.